recite some prayers at the beginning. Okay, so before we start reciting the prayers, let's sit quietly for a few minutes to gather our awareness. So you can just put the prayer book on the desk in front of you, and then get comfortable in your meditation posture. Your legs crossed, your torso straight and balanced, not falling to the front or back, left or right. Find your balance, but don't clench any muscles tighter. Just once you find the place where you're balanced, you can let your body relax. Just settle down onto that point where gravity holds you just perfectly straight. And let your hands rest in your lap, the right hand on top of the left, and the tips of the thumbs touching. Your shoulders broad and open. So if you like, take a few deep breaths and open up your chest, open up your lungs. And then slightly tuck your chin and elongate the back of your neck. Help make a straight line so that your head isn't falling back or falling forwards. And just kind of comfortably held on your neck and shoulders. And then let your gaze fall at about a 45-degree angle towards the ground. And your eyes rest unfocused in space. And then your teeth and lips just rest in a natural position. The tip of your tongue should just gently touch to the roof of the mouth, just behind your front teeth. And then gradually scan through your body, just briefly scan through your body, beginning at the crown of your head, looking through very briefly, touching with your mind, touching on all the parts of your body, going down towards the soles of your feet, and checking if there's any tension or tightness, and if you notice any, just relaxing with each exhalation. Breathing in, bringing the breath into that part of the body. And then as you breathe out, imagine any tension just flows out. And as you breathe in, imagine filling each part of your body with very healing, rejuvenating white light. So like that, just scan down, moving through your body. And then bring your attention to your breath for a couple minutes. Try to just watch your breath without being distracted whatsoever. With a very clear, focused mind, very alert, stable. Try to generate a continual, unbroken stream of awareness, being fully aware of the process of breathing. So you can just watch the entire process of breath as you inhale through your mouth and nose. The breath comes down and fills your lungs. And then as you exhale, with the same pathway, just follow your breath as it comes in and out, like waves lapping up on the shore of the ocean, on the beach. So like tides falling, rising and falling. before we start the prayers, finally generate a positive motivation. So in order for whatever activity we're engaging in, for it to become Dharma, we need to generate the appropriate motivation. So if we do something with a motivation just for selfish happiness in this life, motivated by attachment to objects of pleasure, even the pleasure of sitting quietly, and the pleasure of meditating. And we do so just with attachment, out of a selfish motivation, just to have pleasant experience right here, right now, without any further thought on that, then it doesn't become Dharma. It doesn't become a cause for happiness in future lives, happiness of liberation, happiness of enlightenment. That actually becomes a cause for suffering in the future. So rather than that, then thinking beyond just this life, thinking in order to achieve happiness not only for this life, but that extends into the future, after death as well, transcend death, a transcendent happiness, a source of well-being, in order to cultivate a source of well-being for ourselves, not only in this life, but in future lives, up to liberation from samsara and full enlightenment. Something that increases more and more and more. And not only brings well-being to ourselves, but is also a source of well-being for countless other beings. And is also an antidote to all the afflictive emotions, such as attachment, anger, and ignorance, which are the source of all of our suffering problems. So in short, generate a motivation. Try to generate a motivation that extends not beyond just this life, and extends beyond oneself. So if you can, then try to motivate, try to think that whatever I'm doing now may become a cause for me to become fully enlightened, and that in order that I can free this from suffering and lead them on to this happiness of full enlightenment. So as you maintain that motivation, then it's good if you can visualize all sentient beings seated around. Visualize yourself surrounded by all sentient beings, because we're using our life to benefit them. So to generate a sense of actual interconnectedness with other sentient beings. Then visualize first those who we're most committed to in this life. Kind parents. So begin with your mother on your left, your immediate left, and then all of your female friends and family to your left and behind you. Those who are alive, those who have passed away, all in human aspect. And then to your immediately right, your father of this life and all your male family and friends to your right and behind you. And And then imagine seated directly in front of you, the people you have the most difficulty relating to, people who have the most difficulty generating concern for, people who tend to irritate and upset you. So sometimes the same people who are your family and friends can also be those same people, so you can also visualize them in front. So visualize these people directly in front of you, seated, facing towards you, with the recognition that we have to make special effort to be patient with and try to generate a sense of concern for these people. And then visualize all the other sentient beings of the 6 realms. Imagine them in the aspect of human beings seated all around you, as vast as space. So remember how each of these sentient beings has acted as one's mother, father, friends, dear friends, and family from life to life, giving us every happiness, and also how every happiness we enjoy comes about in dependence upon all of these other kind sentient beings. And then, before we go for refuge, then we'll visualize Shakyamuni Buddha. If you like, you can visualize Shakyamuni Buddha in the space in front of you, just like the image, the statue of her, statue of Shakyamuni Buddha. So seated on a jeweled throne, upon which is a fully open lotus blossom. Upon that, a sun disk, or a disk of yellow light, and a moon disk. So these represent renunciation, wisdom realizing emptiness, and great compassion. Upon these sits Shakyamuni Buddha in a full cross-legged posture, wearing the robes of a fully ordained monk. His body is golden in color. His right hand rests palm down on his right knee, and the tip of his middle finger touches the moon disk upon which he sits. His left hand rests in his lap, the palm face up, in the mudra of meditative equipoise, and holds a begging bowl filled with blissful nectar, which heals all sickness. His face is very radiant, and he affectionately looks upon you. Great concern and kindness. His eyes are half closed, representing that he's continually in meditative absorption on the ultimate nature of all phenomena, and half open, representing that at the very same time he sees the condition of all sentient beings and looks upon them with great affection. His lips are ruby red. All the portions of his body are all balanced, equal. His hair is blue-black in color, each hair tightly quilted right. His ears are long, representing that he's, through countless lifetimes, he's listened to many, many Dharma teachings. And he has a golden protrusion on the top of his head, a Vishnisha, representing his perfect devotion to his spiritual guides over countless lives. So the main thing with the visualization of Shakyamuni Buddha is not all the visual aspects, but rather the feeling, the sense that this being, Shakyamuni Buddha, is aware of turning our attention to him and is actually present in the space in front of us. So he embodies all the positive qualities that are possible for us or any being to attain, but in a manifest form. And Shakyamuni Buddha himself represents the 3 jewels of refuge, the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. And is one essence with our own spiritual guides. So then with the mind of faith and requesting Buddha's assistance in working for the welfare of other sentient beings, his guidance, then we can recite these prayers on page 73 in the prayer book. Again, just praise to Shakyamuni Buddha and to the Buddha Dharma Sangha. Then we'll recite the Heart Sutra, and then offer a mandala, and then recite the Refuge and Bodhicitta prayer. Okay, so please join in, reciting these prayers. To the Founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, Lord of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer of the Shakya clan, I prostrate and make offerings and go for refuge. To the Founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer of the Shakya clan, I prostrate and make offerings and go for refuge. To the Founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate and make offerings and go for refuge. When, O supreme amongst humans, you were born on this earth, paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you, who were wise then, I prostrate. With pure bodies, forms supremely pure, wisdom ocean and the golden mountain, fame that blazes in 3 worlds, winner of the best, Lord, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Dust free like you, the 3 worlds are not, incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you, the one gone to thusness, I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from the all realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to the Dharma that pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated and who also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community intending virtue, I prostrate. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all 3 other devout homage, to all worthy of respect, bound with bodies as many as all realms atoms in all aspects. With supreme faith I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions. Perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual apparition, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits and sentient beings, attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the flow of faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. I prostrate to the eye of Trivandrum. Thus did I hear at one time the Bhagavan was dwelling on Master Shantideva and Vaishnaviya, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattvacharyāvatāra looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, and beheld those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then, through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattvacharyāvatāra. How should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattvacharyāvatāra said this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are empty, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no conditional factors, no consciousness. No ear, no eye, no hearing, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. No visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so on, up to and including, no mind element, and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including, no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and power. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, we reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment, and reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra unequal, equal to the unequal, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as true, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared, Hayata Om Gate Gate Kala Gate Kala Sam Gate Bodhiswaha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that. It is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan having thus spoken, the Venerable Shantideva, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, and asuras and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. Then we'll skip to the mandala offering on page 98. Skip to page 98. So we'll just recite in English the short mandala offering. This ground, anointed with perfumes, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this as the Buddha field and offered, and all living beings enjoy its pure land. O holy and perfect pure Lama, from the clouds of compassion that form in the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please release a rain of vast and profound Dharma, precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be trained. We'll recite once in Tibetan and then twice in English. The refuge in Bodhicitta prayer before the teaching. Sangye Chodang Sodi Chodang Wang Jiangzhu Badu Dadi Kyapsu Shu Dagi Chun Yibe Sonang Yola Panchu Sangye Du Khor Shou Sangye Chodang Sodi Chodang Wang Jiangzhu Badu Dadi Kyapsu Shu Dagi Chun Yibe Sonang Yola Panchu Sangye Du Khor Shou. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create Buddhist into the Dharma. May I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create Buddhist into the Dharma. May I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Okay. Your prayers. So now we look at the Bodhisattva's, a guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life, which you should all have a copy on your desk. And we're in chapter 5, verse 82. Chapter 5, verse 82. So that means page 47. So this is the chapter of guarding alertness. So before this, what was the first chapter? The benefits of the awakening mind. The first chapter was the benefits of the awakening mind. So talking about the awakening mind here means Bodhicitta, the attitude wishing to achieve full enlightenment in order to work for the welfare of all sentient beings in the best possible way. So the first chapter was the benefits of this attitude. It's why it's so wonderful. It's an excellent thing to strive to cultivate and then to meditate on continually, and to make sort of the center of one's Dharma practice in this life, because it leads to enlightenment and it provides boundless benefit to sentient beings continually. So the first chapter was about the benefits of the awakening mind. The second chapter was speaking about different obstacles that we have in our mind to actually generate and continually increasing that attitude. So the disclosure of wrongdoing, reflecting on all the negative things we've done in the past, and then generating regret and purifying the habit to do those things again in the future. And then the third chapter was the full acceptance of the awakening mind. So it's like a formally devoting oneself to generating this attitude of bodhicitta, and then making a promise to continually engage in all practices related to actually following that attitude. So practices related to actually achieving, devoting one's life to working for the welfare of others, and striving towards achieving enlightenment to perfect that aim. And then the fourth chapter was conscientiousness. So being aware of not falling back from that attitude, but increasing it more and more. Yeah, so not wavering from the attitude. And then this fifth chapter that we're on now is called Guarding Alertness. So it starts with, the chapter begins with basically saying how everything that we experience comes from our mind. Right? Very profound teaching by Shantideva. Here elaborated on by Shantideva. That everything we experience, whether every happiness or every suffering we experience, it all comes from our mind, because it all arises from our karma, and the kind of karma we create is determined primarily by our motivation and our intention. And also, on one hand, karma, and then on the other hand, how we view any situation that we encounter. Any set of circumstances that we find ourselves in, the way we look at those circumstances totally affects how we experience that thing, that experience as a problem, as something bad, something I want to just get away from, or as an opportunity to to grow and change and to learn from, basically. So we can have a pessimistic outlook on our life in general, and any particular experience, just look for the problems, things in it, or we can have an optimistic outlook on life and any experience in general, and look for how can I benefit myself or others through this experience. So, this is called guarding alertness, guarding how we use our mind, because all of our happiness comes from our mind in these two ways, depending upon our outlook on things, how we think about things, and depending upon what kind of karma we create, and therefore what kind of karmic effects we experience later on. So then, of course, in terms of trying to become enlightened, the most important thing is looking at our mind. What's going on in our mind? How are we using our awareness? Not only our mind, but also our actions of body, our actions of speech. So this we're in the midst of, in verse 82, here on page 47. We're kind of in the midst of, Shantideva is giving a lot of more very specific advice for how to do things, how to go about ordinary things in your daily life. For example, look at verse 80. I think Venerable Namsam taught this before, but verse 80 is very, very nice kind of piece of advice. So there's a lot of good advice here in the verses that go before what we're talking about today, and the verses that follow. Very practical advice. Like for example, verse 80 says, when beholding someone with my eyes, so whenever I see someone, when beholding someone with my eyes, thinking I shall fully awaken through depending upon this being, right? Thinking independence upon this being, I will gain enlightenment eventually, right? Why? Why is that, you think? It's for audience interpretations.
practice the various paramitas.
Because what? Can you say?
It provides you with the opportunity to practice the various paramitas.
Yes, the other being does.
The Bodhicitta depends on having compassion for all sentient beings.
Yeah, both.
And through Bodhicitta you can attain enlightenment.
Right, and you need to have compassion for every sentient being. So if you don't have compassion for that one person in front of you, then you cannot achieve enlightenment. So independence about that person, you can generate compassion and bodhicitta and then achieve enlightenment. Without that person, impossible. Right? So yeah, so when beholding someone with my eyes, thinking, I shall fully awaken through depending upon this being, right? Independence upon this person, I will achieve enlightenment. And I should look at that person with love and an open heart. Right? So here it's not looking at the person thinking, independence upon this person, I'm going to get something for me. Like I'm going to get enlightenment for me. Because of course enlightenment is something that one achieves in order to benefit others, right? So really it's like saying, independence upon this person, I'm going to learn how to benefit all sentient beings perfectly. Right? It's not a selfish thing. And then look at the person with love and an open heart. Right? So have a loving attitude towards everyone you meet, basically, and an open heart, kindness. Then 81. Always being motivated by great aspiration or being motivated by the remedial forces. If I work in the fields of excellence, benefit and misery, great virtue will come about. What was I talking about? Always being motivated by great aspiration, so aspiration to benefit all beings, or being motivated by the remedial forces. I'm not sure about that. The remedial forces. I think it's being motivated by the antidotes to anger and attachment and ignorance and so forth. If I work in the fields of excellence, benefit and misery, great virtue will come about. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look at a commentary more to know exactly what that's talking about. But anyway, Venerable Tenzin already explained that, so we'll skip down to verse 82, the next one. Endowed with wisdom and joy, I should undertake all that I intend to do. I need not depend upon anyone else in any actions I undertake. So this one is a little interpretation. It's a little bit strange. Endowed with wisdom and joy. So in all we're doing, we need both joy like joyful enthusiasm to do whatever we're doing. We should be enthusiastic, doing things with a positive motivation. But we also need wisdom. We can't just throw like common sense and kind of discriminating mind out the door and just do things following, just with a good heart alone is not enough, right? We need intelligence and wisdom to see, like, okay, what's the best, if I want to help a certain group of people, like, what's the best way to do that? If I want to benefit myself, like, what's the best way to do that? If I don't, have enough rest and sleep and, good hygiene and sort of take care of myself, then I can't really do much to benefit others, or not for very long, right? It's not sustainable. So in many, many different ways, we need to use wisdom. So endowed with wisdom and joy, I should undertake all that I intend to do. So everything I intend to do, I should undertake with a sort of independence, right? So it's not that we don't need to depend upon others at all. Like everything we do, we're able to do independence upon others, beginning with our parents in this life. It's due to the kindness of our parents that we have the very body that we've been born into. Right? Of course, partly it's a result of our own karma, but without the condition of our parents providing the opportunity for us to take rebirth to them, we wouldn't have this body. Right? So, and then our education, our whatever education or skills or language, our understanding of how to interact with other people, all comes about through others. But when we undertake to do something and say, I should undertake all that I intend to do, I need not depend upon anyone else. So it's like if we have discriminating wisdom and a positive intention, we don't need to go around asking every other person, like, do you think I should do this? Do you think I should do this? Or asking for everyone's opinion. We should, with using our own inner wisdom, we should decide, like, oh, I think this is the best path of action. Well, of course, having thought about it well and with good reasons. But once we see clearly for ourselves, we need to have a sort of courageous, independent attitude, like, no, I know this is right, other people don't know as well. So we have to be kind of strong-willed in that way. So I need not depend upon anyone else in actions that I undertake. Okay? So again, you can look for role models in this way. Actually, recently I came to know the story of Live Aid. Maybe most of you maybe a little too young. Live Aid was this huge concert that was held in 1985. It was a huge rock concert held in 1985 in London and Philadelphia both at the same time. Because there was massive famine in Ethiopia at that time. So there was millions and millions of people starving to death. Right? So this one, I mean, speak about someone who didn't depend upon anyone else to undertake actions. There was this one, he's sort of a second-tier rock star, Bob Geldof. Yeah, Bob Geldof. He was the leader of this rock band called the Boomtown Rats, which I'm sure you never heard of. But and he was like he was fading. He'd had a few hits, and then it was kind of a fading star. His career was not going anywhere. And then he just saw a BBC report about all these children dying in Africa, and decided to do something about it. So first he organized an album with all these rock stars, because he's like a musician, right? So he knew all the kind of major musicians in England at that time, like Elton John and The Who and Queen and who else? U2 and all these people. So then they made an album and they raised several million pounds, and then he actually went to Ethiopia to make sure that the money was actually going to food to go to the people. But then he realized they need so much more, the problem was so huge. So then he organized this huge rock concert, which at that time people thought it was, and it was streamed to, they used 18 satellites. It was streamed all over the world by satellite. This is 1985, nothing like that had ever been done. So when he first had the idea, it's everybody talked to him was no, that's impossible. No way you can do that. But he was just totally single-pointedly focused on just doing it, and then he just insisted, and finally it happened. There's a great BBC documentary about it, actually, the whole story of that concert. But it's very inspiring. You see, one person just has the idea to do something to benefit people, and then is just fully committed to, completely dead set on doing it, no matter what other people say. Right? So I think it's a good example of, I don't need to depend upon anyone else. Sometimes it's better, sometimes you need to take advice from others, but sometimes it's better not to listen to what other people say and just do what you think is right, single-pointedly. Right. So, yeah. Okay, so then verse 83. The perfections, such as generosity, are progressively more exalted. But for a little morality, I should not forsake a great gift. Principally, I should consider what will be of the most benefit for others. So the most important line here is the fourth line, right? Principally, so our guiding principle should be, I should consider what will be of the most benefit for others. So then I'll explain. So from the first, the perfections, such as generosity. So there's talking about the perfections are these 6 kind of ways of categorizing a bodhisattva's actions, right? So there's, and they go in order of those that are more exalted, the less exalted to the more exalted. Exalted means here supreme, the least supreme to the most supreme. So it begins with, at the bottom is generosity, is the first one, because it's easiest to practice, right? Do you think it's easier to be a generous person or to be a very moral person? It's easier to be generous, right? Morality requires a lot more self-discipline. Generosity just requires, having a big heart and just giving stuff away. Or having the intention to give things away also.
The first line.
Wait, let me explain this in this verse first. I'm right in the middle of explaining this verse, Shanti. I'll come back to you. Okay. So the six perfections. The first is generosity, and then more difficult and more supreme to practice is morality. Then more difficult than that is patience. Yeah, patience, not getting angry in the face of people harming us or doing things we don't like. And then more difficult than that is enthusiasm. Enthusiasm, I'm not sure actually why it's more supreme, but it's more long-term. Continually having enthusiasm for Dharma practice, not burning out. Having unwavering enthusiasm and perseverance in working to benefit others, right? Is the next. And then the next is meditative concentration, the ability to have your mind perfectly focused on whatever you're doing. And then the 6th is wisdom, the perfection of wisdom. So, so generally generally because there's this order of being more exalted, then it's considered more important to practice the higher ones than the lower ones, right? But, or you should put more effort into the higher ones than the lower ones. of the 6 perfections. But here it's saying, it's saying you have to use common sense, kind of, to see what's more beneficial. So the perfections such as generosity are progressively more exalted. So generosity comes, and then above that is morality. And it says, but for a little morality, I should not forsake a great gift. Right? So here it's saying, like, if just practicing morality would say, like, well, there's an opportunity to to benefit some person or group of people greatly by by making a great gift. Actually, I can come back to Live Aid. It's a good example here. By giving this big gift, but it involves a little bit of immorality. It's okay. It's okay to do things that are a little immoral sometimes if there's more benefit by practicing generosity. So this example of Live Aid is a good one. Like this Bob Geldof, when he was trying to get all these rock stars, they all have big egos. None of them want to perform the same stage with others. They all want the stage all themselves. And they don't want to be like lose face or be publicly embarrassed if the whole thing doesn't go well, right? They don't want to be part of a sham like concert. So none of them would agree to do it at the beginning. So this guy Bob Geldof was asking all these rock stars to participate. He's lying to all of them. He's calling all of them up and saying, well, Queen already, he calls up U2, and they say, no, I don't want to do that. And then he says, well, Queen already agreed to do it, and David Bowie already agreed to do it. Well, they haven't agreed at all. So he's calling around lying to all of them. But he's also, but for, not for selfish aims or not for, something for a really good cause. I'm not saying that's totally right, but the long-term goal is amazing, excellent. They raised something like 82 million pounds or something, like some incredible amount of money to benefit so many people in Africa. So that's an example, like for this greater good, it's okay to do a little bit, things that are a little bit immoral, if you know that your motivation is really pure, right? It's really not selfish, really, you really are fully convinced that it's going to be beneficial to others. Okay, Subhash, did you have some question about 82?
82, the first line is actually the fourth and the last paragraph. Wisdom and role.
Yeah, it's the fourth and the fourth part of the
Sixth and fourth.
Sixth, yeah, exactly. The sixth and the fourth. Yeah, that's true. It is. It's referring to those two. Okay, let's go next page, verse 84. When this is well understood. So when it's understood that it's okay to, to sacrifice, to do something a little bit immoral in order for the greater benefit. So the main thing in verse 83, the main thing to understand from there is, I should consider what will be of most benefit for others. Right? That's the guiding principle. So when this is well understood, I should always strive for the welfare of others. The far-seeing merciful ones have allowed a bodhisattva to do some actions that for others were forbidden. Right? So he's saying, bodhisattvas, if you really have this attitude that, day and night you're continually driven by the wish to achieve enlightenment, to benefit all sentient beings, which means day and night you're driven by the wish to benefit all sentient beings, like do whatever it takes to bring about the welfare of others, right? Then the far-seeing merciful ones, means the Buddhas, have said that bodhisattvas can sometimes engage in actions that are forbidden by others. So again, it means things like, maybe telling a small lie, or using maybe harsh speech, and sometimes use harsh speech if it's beneficial to others. But again, it all depends on if the motivation is really pure. Right? There was even a story from Buddha's past life where he took someone's life. He killed someone in order to protect their lives. Someone who you could see was intending to kill a lot of other people. So in order to protect the lives of others, he killed that person. Or like you think kind of a Robin Hood scenario. Not that Robin Hood, I'm not sure is totally right, but if you take a little bit from someone in order it'd be very beneficial to a lot of others, then maybe sometimes okay. But then you have to be very careful with, because it can easily slip into making excuses for just doing immoral things, just making excuses for doing immoral things, like deluding yourself and deluding others. So you have to be extremely careful with that. Then 85, I should divide my food amongst those who have fallen to the lower realms. I think what I'll try to do, because we have 100, we want to go up to verse 109 today. So I'll just try to go through each verse fairly quickly, and then if you have questions, we can come back and discuss them in more detail. Okay. So verse 85, I should divide my food amongst those who have fallen to the lower realms, those without protection and practitioners, and eat merely what is sufficient for myself. Except for the 3 robes, I will give away all. So I think 85, I mean, yeah, there's different ways to interpret it. The basic message here is don't indulge in just eating a lot of food and indulge in a lot of other pleasure just for your selfish, out of attachment, basically, just for your selfish desire. But rather eat, in order to sustain the body, in order to serve other sentient beings. And also don't waste food. But here it says, I should divide my food amongst those who have fallen to the lower realms. I think it means like if you have enough food and there's like animals, if there's animals around that you can and that are hungry and you can help feed, then give some to them. Don't just greedily eat all the food yourself. Those without protection and practitioners. So those without protection would be like homeless people, especially people who are mentally, insane or mentally incapacitated that are living on the street, that don't have anyone to look after them. Give some of your food away to them. And then other fellow practitioners. So I mean, this teaching was addressed to an audience of monks, but it applies as well to nuns and lay people also. Like if there's other brother and sister Dharma practitioners who need some support, either food or clothing or money or whatever, then if we have enough for ourselves, then we should share what we have with others, in short. And eat merely what is sufficient for myself. Except for the 3 robes. So again, 3 robes is the robes of a monk, right? So it means except for the robes of a monk, I may give away all. So everything else I can give away. I don't need to keep anything else. So basically it's saying, if you want to practice the Dharma well and practice the Bodhisattva path, live a very simple life with few possessions.
Because basically this book addressed...
I'll come back to questions at the end, actually. Otherwise we'll never get to the verses. And then, the next chapter is actually the most important chapter in the book, patience. But please keep your question in mind. Okay, verse 86. This body, so my body, which is being used for the sacred Dharma, should not be harmed for only slight benefit. By behaving this way, the wishes of all beings will be quickly fulfilled. So it's saying don't for just some slight benefit to another sentient being, don't destroy your body. Don't harm your body, because we need to use it for long-term, for long-term benefit. So, for example, like extreme fasting, or if it's conducive to health, okay, do it. But if it becomes something that's harmful to your body, then you shouldn't do it. Or there's another practice, like in the Chinese tradition, of like offering a finger, burning a finger as an offering. That you don't see in the Tibetan tradition. I think largely because of this. If it's a slight benefit, to offer make your finger into a wick and like burn it, offer it, is okay. You're making an offering to the Buddha, but it's harming your body now. So in the long term, you don't have the ability to use that finger anymore, as an example. Or it could be even. There's an interesting case of donating kidneys. Being a kidney donor. It's really, you have to think carefully. Like, if there's someone that needs a kidney, you have the same blood type, you could give to them. Of course, the motivation to give to them is excellent. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't. But this kind of statement is referring to that kind of decision that you might make. But there's someone that needs a kidney, you have the potential, you have the same blood type, you have a healthy kidney, you could give to them. But then how is it going to affect your long-term health and your long-term ability to practice Dharma? Of course, if it's not going to impede that, then fine, go ahead and do it. But if there's a real danger that it might impede your benefit to use this the incredible opportunity of this fortunate rebirth you've taken, and having met Dharma and having met teachers and the ability to practice and actually be of a greater benefit to others, then you should think twice. So basically, it's saying in any situation where there's a benefit if there's an opportunity to benefit others, but it might entail harm, physical harm to us, then we have to gauge what is of more benefit, accepting that physical harm or preserving our body in order that we can continue using it to serve other sentient beings in the long term. Then verse 87, those who lack the pure intention of compassion should not give away their body, should not give their body away. Instead, both in this and future lives, they should give it to the cause of fulfilling the great purpose. So this is especially, it's referring to, like I think you see in the Sutra of Golden Light, isn't it, where there's the story of, in one of Shakyamuni Buddha's past lives, there's a famous story, where he was a prince in Nepal, and with his two brothers, he went wandering in a jungle, and they came across a tigress, a mother tigress, who had like 5 cubs, and they were starving to death. She hadn't been able to find any prey, any food, for many, many days, and she was starving to death. She didn't have any milk to feed them anymore. The cubs were also starving to death. So she was thinking of eating her own cubs in order to sustain her life. In Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha's past life, he was this Bodhisattva prince. Seeing that, he felt great compassion, and then he told his brothers, "Oh, go back to the kingdom. I'll join you after a while." And then he offered his body to the tigress. He cut it, and he just laid down in front of her at first, and she didn't have enough strength to even eat him. So then he took some bamboo and cut his wrist, I think. So then some blood came from his body, and then she could drink the blood and then have some strength, and then she ate his body, and then fed the cubs. The cubs also ate his body. So that's an example of like a bodhisattva offering their body. There's many examples like this, but offering their body, offering the whole life to benefit another sentient being, right? But here it's saying, don't do that easily, right? Those who lack the pure intention of compassion, right? If you don't really have, like, I think, actual bodhicitta, or you don't have the pure intention of compassion, you should not give your body away to others, right? So you have to have a very high level of realization to actually do that. Why? Because, like what happened to that prince, of course, he has a very pure heart, pure mind, and he could maintain that pure attitude right through this, incredibly traumatic experience of cutting your body open and being eaten alive by a tiger. Like, if most of us were to do that, maybe we think, oh, the tiger's hungry, I'll lay down, but then once it's eating us, we'll be like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, we'll be crazy, We'd be like, and then the chances that we take a good rebirth are very low, like, because our mind is completely disturbed, right? So if you have such a level of realization that you can endure, like, really giving away your body and your mind, your mind is totally unwavering in your pure, altruistic intention, then of course, then you'll definitely take a very good rebirth and you can continue on the path. But otherwise, if you get in over your head, you get in the water over your head, and all of a sudden you start panicking, then there's a likelihood you won't take a good rebirth. And then once you're born as an animal or a hungry ghost or an helping, then very difficult to continue on the path in the future. So that's why I'm saying, be realistic about what you can do. So those who lack the pure intention of compassion should not give away their body. Instead, both in this and future lives, they should give it to the cause, means offer their body to the cause of fulfilling the great purpose. So it means use your body in a realistic way and just progressively, gradually, keep striving for enlightenment, striving to achieve the welfare of sentient beings in a gradual and kind of stable way. Then verse 88, the Dharma should not be explained. The Dharma should not be explained to those who lack respect, to those who, like the sick, wear cloth around their heads, to those holding umbrellas, sticks, or weapons, to those with covered heads. So here it's kind of saying, like, you shouldn't proselytize. There's different kind of layers of meaning here. One is, don't proselytize. To people who are not really interested in Dharma, don't sit there and just keep preaching to them, because it's no benefit. It's no benefit to you, no benefit to them, and maybe even be irritating to them. But also it's saying, if there's people who really don't have respect for what you're saying, for the Buddha's message, it doesn't even have to be couched in the terms of Buddhism, but there's people who are really not interested in what you're saying, then it's like a disservice to the Dharma it cheapens the Dharma to keep preaching to those people who don't have respect for it. So the ideal condition is when people are really interested, they really have some sense of the value of the Buddhist teachings. And then they listen, and then they'll listen well, and listen with an open mind. So, but like in the case where, I don't know why it said, Holding umbrellas, I mean, if someone's holding an umbrella, well, it's probably because it's too hot or it's raining, right? So then they're distracted, right? If they're holding sticks or weapons, then it's like they're preparing, to maybe beat someone up or something like that. It's kind of too aggressive atmosphere. And then those with covered heads, I think it's referring to people who are adhere strongly to another religious belief system, right? Then maybe it's not appropriate to explain this Dharma at length, or especially the Bodhisattva path. But then again, I mean, you have to look at this involves a lot of different, possible situations. So it's really helpful in this kind of case to look at the actions of our teachers. Look at the actions of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. There's so many times when he explains, very simple, like just be a kind heart, be kind-hearted, be a good person. In any context, to anybody, kind of, more or less. So, so you kind of have to see what seems appropriate. I mean, even like there's in the Bhagavad Gita, there's a famous scene where Krishna is basically teaching Dharma in the midst on the battlefield as they're about to enter the battle. And that time he's teaching Dharma. Is it? Yeah, what's the correct name? The battle is between them.
Yeah, because
The dialogue is
Oh, the dialogue is between them.
between them, because
Right.
he is a great warrior.
Yeah.
But at that point of time, he says, how can I fight my own people?
Right.
So it's in that context.
But where does the dialogue take place?
In the battlefield.
Right. So there's people holding sticks and weapons.
Yeah.
Right.
So both the armies are already arrayed against each other.
Yeah.
And that's when Arjuna says, I cannot fight. He says,
Right.
what are you saying?
Right.
This is, so the whole dialogue is between Krishna and Arjuna.
Perfect. Yeah. So that's an example when actually it is beneficial not to follow this. That's what I'm saying. There could be situations where that actually, in a certain circumstance, it is more beneficial to practice Dharma, even though people are holding sticks and weapons and so forth. So yeah, and that might be a good example. Anyway, I think you get the gist. Then verse 89. So, nor to a woman unaccompanied by a man, the vast and profound should not be taught to lesser beings, although I should always pay equal respect to the Dharma of the lesser and higher beings. This requires quite a lot of interpretation. So not to a woman accompanied by a man. So remember, this teaching Shantideva is giving to an audience of monks, right? So for monks actually to have a vow not to be in a secluded place alone with a woman, because there's danger that their attachment arises and then they break one of the root vows, right? And there's also the danger that lay people lose faith because they see, oh look, that monk's alone with that woman in an isolated place. What are they doing? So other people get doubts about it. So for that reason, then he's telling the monks, don't teach Dharma to a woman unaccompanied by a man. There should always be. So it's not that woman needs a man to be around. It's for the protection of the reputation of both persons, and also for the protection of the monk from falling prey to their own attachment, lust. The vast and profound should not be taught to lesser beings. So here, lesser beings actually, it means those with basically who follow the Pali canon. Those who practice Dharma just with the motivation to achieve freedom from samsara for themselves. So it means basically, for people have different mental dispositions. Some people, they find the suffering of this life, the thought of the suffering of future lives, the suffering of samsara completely so overwhelming that their single-pointed goal is to be free from that as quickly as possible, right? To be free from the suffering of samsara as quickly as possible, and exclusively that. So that kind of person, if you try to teach them about, you should strive for full enlightenment, you should work to benefit all sentient beings, it becomes too much, and it can make them feel just like totally defeated. It becomes like too overwhelming. It doesn't fit their mental capacity, and it can make them kind of give up the whole Buddhist, throw out the baby with the bathwater, throw out the whole endeavor to practice Dharma altogether, right? So you have to be careful, like what you explain to people at what times, and explain what's appropriate and what will fit their mind at that time. You can think of many other examples like this. Yeah, you know, like if you have a good friend and you know one day they're really unhappy, you know, really miserable, and you can see they really need to kind of cheer up. Maybe you know the partner just left them, or they just lost their job, or they just found out they're diagnosed with a really terrible disease. And then you've seen some things that you don't like about their actions, you know, before, and you've been needing to talk to them about it, but you don't talk about it at that time. You know, if you have a friend and you've seen some things that you think, you know, you really should tell them, like they're lying, or maybe they're drinking too much, or maybe they're, I don't know, they're treating your other friends with total disregard, very unkind or belittling way. But then you meet that person one time, and one day they're totally like distraught. Something terrible has happened to them. It's like at that time you don't tell them about all those other things you've been meaning to, like, you know, confront them with. Rather you wait for a time when they're more open to hearing. It's kind of like that. Like, the vast and profound view should not be taught to lesser beings, not because there's something wrong with those beings or bad with those beings, but because it doesn't fit their mental capacity at that time. And it's not that you never teach them, it's just at that specific time and place, then you don't. Although I should always pay equal respect, so this is very important. Although I should always pay equal respect to the dharmas of the lesser and higher beings. So yes, this is quite an outdated, actually, way of translating. So this is actually referring to the Hinayana Mahayana, which is also an outdated way of. It's not such a healthy way to refer to to these two vehicles, basically. You can say the hearer. There's the hearer vehicle and the bodhisattva vehicle. That's more like it's a more mutually respectful way to talk about these two vehicles in practice that Shakyamuni Buddha taught. Or we can talk about like the Pali Canon and the Sanskrit Canon. In the Pali Canon, the Buddha taught the hearer vehicle, so with the emphasis on the Eightfold Noble Path, the Four Noble Truths, and how to achieve mere freedom from samsara, freedom from the suffering of samsara. In the Sanskrit Canon, or the Bodhisattva vehicle, the Buddha taught how to engage in this whole vast array of practices in order to achieve full enlightenment, which is much beyond mere freedom from samsara. Okay, verse 90. I should not communicate the dharma of, say, the hearer vehicle, lesser beings, to one who is a vessel for the vast dharma. I must not forsake the bodhisattva way of life, nor mislead others by means of sutra or mantra. So I should not communicate the dharma of lesser beings. Here means, again, here it doesn't mean you shouldn't teach the dharma of the Pali Canon or the hearer vehicle at all. Rather, it means you shouldn't, someone who already has a disposition to practice the bodhisattva way of life, the bodhisattva's vehicle, you shouldn't discourage them from that and encourage them to merely practice the path of the hearer vehicle, right? The path leading to mere liberation from samsara. So that's what that means. I should not communicate the dharma of the lesser being to one as a vessel for the vast dharma. I must not forsake the bodhisattva way of life. So it means I shouldn't give up this way of life. Simple. Nor mislead others by means of sutras or mantras. So this is a big danger. Nor mislead others. So you shouldn't use sutras or mantras or teachings about those in order to for the 8 worldly concerns, in order to become more famous, in order to acquire more power or influence, in order to get praise from others, or in order to accumulate wealth, or other worldly pleasures. So you shouldn't use the dharma in a worldly way just to get benefit for yourself alone, motivated by attachment or arrogance or pride or whatever. 91. Then, when I spit or throw, so this is very easy. When I spit or throw the stick for cleaning my teeth, I should cover it with earth. Very easy, no? So you see people, especially, I don't know, in South India I don't see so much, but in like Bihar, when you go to Bodh Gaya and you're going out to the countryside in the morning, you see so many people who still use a neem stick to clean their teeth. So they're saying, don't just throw that stick, around in clean places where anybody could walk on it. Or if you spit out, you're cleaning the mouth and you spit out, you should cover it up with earth, so keep the place clean, basically. Also, it is shameful to urinate and so forth in water or on land used by others. So it's quite impressive. This is back how many, over 1,000 years ago. Shantideva is already, and actually the Buddha actually set down a moral code for monks to not urinate or defecate in water, or even throw out when you wash the baking bowl, wash your plate, the food, you can't throw in water. You should throw it on the ground because it pollutes the water. Because the water is something we need clean for everybody to use. Right? Like that. Then 92, when eating, I should not fill my mouth. So my mother would love this verse. She was, I remember her telling me again and again and again when I was a kid, like, Brian, Legtsok, don't chew with your mouth open. So many times. But very helpful. I'm glad she told me. When eating, I should not fill my mouth. So, not like, especially not fill both of your cheeks, your whole mouth just stuffed with food. When eating, I should not fill my mouth. Don't eat noisily or with my mouth wide open, right? Because he explains, but it's offensive to others. I should not sit with my legs outstretched, nor rub my hands together. So I think it means when you're eating, don't sit with your legs out, just straight out, stretched, but eat, mindfully. And don't rub your hands together. I think with greed, like, I'm going to eat it down. I think like that, like that. Okay, 93, I should not sit alone in vehicles. So this, I should not sit alone in vehicles. So you have to remember, this is like 1,000 years ago, right? Who has vehicles? Only very wealthy, powerful people have a vehicle to ride in. So then if you sit in a car like all alone, it's kind of like you're really putting yourself up in a way. I think it must have been deemed a little arrogant at that time. These days, if you just sit in your car alone on the side of the street, nobody's going to think anything of it. So it doesn't apply really now. I should not sit alone in vehicles upon beds.
This relates to women of others.
Wait. Upon beds, nor in the same room. With the women of others. Alright, maybe it all connects. Maybe, okay. I was reading them each independently. But you're right, probably, it does. Because especially upon beds, that totally makes sense. Nor in the same room with the women of others. So with someone else's wife, basically, or someone else's daughter. So this is again for monks, right? If you're a woman, it's totally irrelevant. But I mean, not irrelevant. You interpret it to a different situation. It'd be like, if you're a woman, then you don't sit alone in the room with, someone else's husband, for example. So should not sit in vehicles, upon beds, nor in the same room with the women of others, because, others, basically because it might disturb others' minds. Even if there's nothing from your side, there's nothing from their side, you're not doing anything wrong, but the other person, they might get jealous or might get doubt or something. In brief, having observed or inquired about what is proper, I should not do anything that would be disliked by the people of the world. Right? So that's the guiding principle, and it changes from place to place and time to time. I should not do anything which would be considered inappropriate and be disliked by the people of the world, by the ordinary people in ordinary society in that time and place. Right? That's what it's saying. Right. Because you think, if you're practicing the Bodhisattva path, if you want to be a guide to others, a role model to others, if you want to be a teacher for others, someone who can, not necessarily a teacher like you sit on a throne and teach others, but someone who other people trust and other people can turn to for guidance, and other people feel confident to seek your help with their problems when they have problems. So if you want to benefit people, you need to be someone like that. If you're going to be someone like that, you need to live and act in a way which accords with people's ideas about what a role model is, right? What a role model acts like, what a trustworthy person acts like, what a wise person, how they live, how they act. You need, even though it might not, from your own side, you might not agree with all those kind of customs, social customs at that time. To some degree, you have to act in accordance with those, because if you act in total discordance with people's ideas about how a good person behaves, then it's difficult to have contact. Not difficult to have, it's difficult to have good relationships with people. So it's difficult to have a good influence on them because they totally just discount you as something kind of inappropriate or something kind of just strange and not trustworthy. Right? So you need to generate trust basically with people, rapport. You have to have good rapport with people. 94. I should not give this is interesting. I should not give directions with one finger, but instead indicate the way respectfully with my right arm, with all my fingers fully outstretched. Is that common in Indian society?
You don't want to point this finger. You don't point with this finger.
Why not?
It's considered disrespectful.
Yeah, I wonder why. Because
So now people use this finger or the whole hand.
they use the middle finger? That's very disrespectful in the West.
Little.
The
Little, because this
the
is
middle, yeah, the middle. Yeah.
but so this is very inappropriate. You don't point at a person.
Yeah, but you don't know why though. Anybody know why?
I think these are the things I've heard from my parents, that when you're showing one finger outside, there are 3 fingers looking back to you.
Oh.
Something like that. So my parents used to say that, stop pointing fingers, because when you're pointing fingers at others, 3 is back to you.
This
Okay.
is
This is what my parents
convention.
used to say.
Yeah.
I know, like, don't.
But what's
find
the 3 back to you? What does that mean? Like,
Position is like this, right?
huh?
When you putting it like this,
It's like a gun?
yeah, something thick.
Yeah, but that's what I said. Like, because mainly it is more symbolic. You know, don't find faults in
Yeah,
others.
correct. That's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
point.
The context of finding fault with somebody else, because if you show one finger,
Yeah.
there are 3 fingers pointing back at you.
Unless it means if you're finding one fault with someone else,
Yeah.
you're pointing at 3 faults with you.
Yeah.
I see. Okay,
Basically,
interesting.
don't find the fault in another person.
Yeah. But then if you're pointing 5 fingers at them,
No, it's
then
just
it's
no, this is respectful. You are just doing it like this.
this is respectful.
This is more respect, that side, you know.
I think this culture is explanation why. This is culture.
Yeah.
In Tibetan also like this.
I know, in Tibetan also like that. Yeah. Now when I came from the West to Asia first and I heard about this, it was quite interesting. Because in the West we don't have any, at least in America there's nothing like that.
So
Really.
the whole idea of the right hand, meaning your hand,
Yeah.
and the left hand within you.
The impure hand,
When
yeah.
we give somebody also, you're supposed to give
Yeah,
the
that
right hand.
I know. Yeah. That I learned from Lonely Planet when I first came to India. Lonely Planet explains. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so like this, quite respectfully like that. Then 95. Nor should I wildly wave my arms about, but should make my point with slight gestures and a snap of the fingers. Otherwise, I shall lose control. Yeah, I didn't remember this line before, but I was just with Lama Zopa Rinpoche for 1 month in France, and you notice when Lama Zopa is teaching, he snaps all the time. I never saw any other teacher. At many points, he'll make a snap. He'll snap when he's making a point, which I never saw any other teacher do. But here he says that. But I should make my point with slight gestures and a snap of the fingers. I don't know, do you see people doing that?
No.
Okay. I don't know.
You do the same thing for your debates and not snap.
We clap, yeah. It's similar, yeah, we clap. You know, sometimes we snap also. Yeah, that's true. Otherwise I shall lose control. So don't wave your arms about wildly. Yeah. You have to let me know if I'm doing that.
Why,
Sometimes I'm not sure.
why would you otherwise lose control if you don't snap up on it?
Well, no, he said if you wave, if you're talking and just gesturing about wildly, then you might kind of go overboard and lose control of like what you're saying. Get too excited, you know. So just make mild gestures. But sometimes Rinpoche also makes very big, wild gestures, but it's because he sees people not really listening. So to drive the point home, then he'll speak very forcefully.
Actually, the Americans use their hands a lot much more.
Italians do.
Yeah.
In terms of explaining things,
Yeah.
when they're talking.
Yeah. They do. Yeah. 96. Just as the Buddha lay down to pass away, so should I lie in the desired direction when going to sleep. And first of all, with alertness, make the firm decision to quickly rise again. So the Buddha, when he lied down to pass away, he lied on his right side. It's called the lion posture. And with his head pointing towards the east, I believe. I think generally the east.
That's
Shanti says west, he said north. I don't know. I don't know.
no, it's
It
that
doesn't matter either. But I think the main thing when you're lying down to sleep, you should always think your head is pointing towards your teacher. Like whatever you take refuge in, you take, it can be so pan-religion. But whatever you take, wherever you take ultimate refuge in, you should, when you lay down to sleep, it's good to think that they're just above your head. You're putting your head in their lap, or they're just there, and they're watching over you while you sleep. So to me, that's the best direction. It's just whatever. I mean, in some texts it says when you lay down to sleep, you should put your head in the direction of your guru, wherever your guru is, right? So like, I don't know, if I'm thinking Dalai Lama is my main guru and he's in Dharamsala, then I'm here, then I should put my head towards the north. But you have to be practical. I mean, in the room, like if you're in a room and there's an altar on one side of the room, you don't sleep with your feet pointing towards the altar. You sleep with your head pointing towards the altar, right? Or at least sideways, not with your feet towards the altar. Okay, so like that. And first, but this is the second two lines is, the last two lines is very good. And first of all, with alertness. So when I'm going to sleep, with alertness, I should make the firm decision to quickly rise again. So as you're going to sleep, make the decision that in the morning, as soon as I wake up, I'll get up. Not just lazily lay down around in bed like for half the day or something. But of course, if you really need rest, then of course you sleep in. Even Dalai Lama says. And you need to get the rest you need. But it can become a habit. I mean, I know from experience, it can become a habit of just laying in bed in the morning. Oh, I don't want to get out of bed. Yeah, it's so comfortable. I just lay here. Then you become attached to just the pleasure of laying in bed, and you could be up and doing more useful things. So it's good, like when you go to sleep, to generate the alertness, the intention to rise quickly in the morning. 97. Although I am unable to practice all the limitless varieties of Bodhisattva conduct, I should certainly practice as much as has been mentioned here, of this conduct that trains the mind. So in the verses that I just gone before, at least try to practice these different kinds of Bodhisattva conduct, even though there's so many more and it's impossible to practice all of them right now. Like that. So, yeah. As a rule of thumb, I mean, it's good to look at, what at the beginning of our practice, what are the strongest afflictions we have? What are the strongest disturbing emotions we have? And especially focus on practices to reduce those. If we have strong greed, then try to practice more contentment. If we have strong jealousy, then focus on practices that reduce our jealousy, and so forth. Then 98. 3 times by day and 3 times by night I should recite the Sutra of the Three Heaps. For by relying on the Buddhas and the awakening mind, my remaining downfalls will be purified. So if you're interested to know, that's the practice of the 35 Buddhas. It's in the prayer book here. But it's saying 3 times a day and 3 times a night to practice that. But usually it's more common to recite. You can recite these, like one simple way to do that is to recite the Sutra of the Three Heaps 3 times in the morning, all at once. It's the prostrations to the 35 Buddhas. Or you can even just prostrate like this and recite the names of the 35 Buddhas. But you can recite each name just 3 times and then recite the prayer at once. And then in the evening do Bodhisattva practice. This is for the same. They're both purification practices. Yeah. Like that. Then 99. Whatever I am doing in any situation, whether for myself or for the benefit of others, I should strive to put into practice whatever has been taught for that situation. Right? So there's so many different advices for how to behave in different situations. But I should. So here below he's going to talk about how we should study. We need to study more and more and more about the behavior of a bodhisattva, how they should behave in different situations, and then whatever situation we find ourselves in, practice whatever advice we can remember that applies to that situation. And thereby we use every moment of every day to continually, cultivate positive qualities in our mind, to continually become a better person and become more beneficial to others. So here, one I found very helpful piece of advice from Atisha. I always remember Atisha said, when alone, watch your mind. So when you're all alone, watch what's going on in your mind. When you're in the company of others, watch your speech. Very simple, right? When alone, watch your mind. When in the company of others, watch your speech. Right? Very helpful. So those kind of advices, you collect, and then try to remember and try to apply in whatever situation you're in. Then verse 100, there is no such thing as something that is not learned by a bodhisattva. Thus, if I am skilled in living in this way, nothing will be non-meritorious. So this is very interesting, I find. There is no such thing. There is no such thing as something that is not learned by a bodhisattva. So it means, because a bodhisattva, they're a person who has the wish to benefit all sentient beings, and every sentient being has different disposition, different interests, different needs also. So it's like a bodhisattva needs to learn about everything. Eventually you become a Buddha, you become omniscient, you know about everything. So it's like a bodhisattva should have real curiosity about all different kinds of fields of knowledge and in life. Know about how to fix a car, know about how to make good food, know about how to arrange flowers, how to make beautiful paintings, how to make music, how to know about psychology, know about physics, know about literature, know about history. So because each of those things can be used to benefit different sentient beings. This reminds me a lot of actually the Jesuits in the Catholic Church. I met a group of Jesuits in Bodh Gaya about 2 years ago. They came to Bodh Gaya to study Buddhism a little bit and have a conference. They have like a biannual conference. So they invited some of us monks and nuns to come and give talks to them about our lives as monastics. And I was fascinated. Among these Jesuits, there was one was a Buddhist scholar teaching at a university, teaching Buddhism. Another was a Zen priest. Another is a teacher of psychology. Another is like a physicist or something. But and I asked them, how can you be a Christian, a Jesuit priest, and also be like a Zen monk, or be like teaching Buddhism for your career, or teaching French or something? And they were like the founder of their order, the Jesuit order. He said, in order to benefit beings, we need to know all fields of knowledge, so we can study anything and use that to benefit others. So it was very, very inspiring, actually, very, very open-minded and very enlightened kind of attitude towards knowledge. So Bodhisattva don't have a narrow-minded, I can only read Buddhist books, I can only listen to Buddhist teachings, I can only hang out with Buddhist people. Not like that. Very broad-minded. Learn everything. Know how to interact with all kinds of people to benefit everybody. So very good. But everything with a virtuous motivation, so then everything becomes meritorious. Nothing will be non-meritorious. Then 101, whether directly or indirectly, I should not do anything that is not for the benefit of others. Solely for the sake of sentient beings, I should dedicate everything towards awakening. Right? So everything should be done with an altruistic motivation, with the wish to benefit others in the short term, in the long term. Whether directly or indirectly, I should not do anything that is not for the benefit of others. So everything I do, it should be for the benefit of others, directly or indirectly. Solely for the sake, so indirectly means sometimes we have to do things to benefit ourselves. Indirectly, that's going to benefit others, right? Of course. Solely for the sake of sentient beings, I should dedicate everything towards awakening. So that makes very clear. Sometimes people think, I want to become enlightened, I want to become enlightened, but they forget about benefiting all sentient beings. Just me, I want to achieve the best. No, that's totally wrong. He's saying it's solely for the sake of other sentient beings that I should dedicate everything towards enlightenment. So enlightenment is something we strive to achieve out of a selfless wish, to be of the greatest possible benefit for others. If it's a selfish wish for our own ends, then it's totally misguided. Then verse 102, never even at the cost of my life. So these are two verses about devoting to the Guru, devoting to a spiritual friend. Never even at the cost of my life should I forsake a spiritual friend who is wise in the meaning of the great vehicle and who is a great Bodhisattva practitioner. Right? So never even at the cost of my life should I forsake my spiritual friend. So even at the cost of my life means that there's a situation where you have to choose between saving the life of your spiritual friend who is wise and a great Bodhisattva practitioner and sacrificing your own life. You should sacrifice your own life. It's not literal, it's not expressly saying that, but that's kind of what that phrase means, never even at the cost of my life. So it means, maybe that's a little too literal translation, but a literal interpretation. But it means like our devotion to the spiritual friend who is wise in showing the great vehicle and is a great Bodhisattva practitioner, who is a perfect role model. That should be something that's like at the center of our life, of foremost importance in our life, right? as much as our very life itself is. Yeah, there's a lot more could be said about that, but I want to finish these verses. Then verse 103, I should practice entrusting myself to the spiritual master and the manner taught in the biography of Sri Sambhava. This and other advice spoken by the Buddha I can understand through reading the sutras. So the way of devoting ourselves to the teacher, it's interesting. So if you look at endnote 19 at the back of the book, there's this, many of you will remember this prayer. And I didn't realize it's from a sutra, actually. So, you know, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, he set out the Lama Chopa, the Guru Puja, and he includes this prayer actually within. It's called the prayer of, I mean, there it's set out as like a prayer, let's see, devoting to the Guru with 9 attitudes. Devoting to the Guru with 9 attitudes. So in France, we were reading that every morning, that prayer. Every morning we're reading that. But I didn't realize it's from a sutra. The Gandhavyuha Sutra. So here it's in page 172. One should honor and respect the spiritual friend with a mind like the earth, which does not become discouraged. It bears all burdens. Like a diamond, indestructible in its intention. Like a mighty fence, which cannot be breached by any suffering. Like a slave who does not complain at having to undertake all tasks. Like a sweeper having relinquished all self-importance. Like a vehicle in bearing heavy loads. Like a pet dog in not becoming angry. Like a boat which does not object to coming and going. And like a wise son or child in beholding the face of the spiritual friend. Noble son, you should recognize yourself to be a sick man, a sick person, the spiritual friend to be the doctor, his precepts to be the medicine, and an earnest practice to be the way to treat the sickness. So there's 2 things. There's the last paragraph up there is the 4 attitudes when you're listening to a Dharma teaching. He's explaining that. And then the section before that, actually in the Lamrim, in the section on how to properly devote to a spiritual guide, Lama Tsongkhapa primarily gives that passage from the sutra and explains that. Yeah, but there's a lot to explain there, so I don't have time to go into it now. And then, so in verse 103, the last 2 lines, this and other advice spoken by the Buddha, I can understand through reading the sutras. So this I want to emphasize, reading the sutras. So look at verse 104. I should read the sutras because it is from them that practices appear. To begin with, I should look at the sutra of Akashagarbha. So to my own embarrassment, I have to say I've never read that sutra. So it's like I haven't even begun, according to Shantideva. But I looked it up. When I was preparing for class today, I looked it up online because Dzongchen Khyentse Rinpoche has organized this wonderful organization called 84,000 Project, where he has a lot of sponsors and he's giving grants to many, many different translators all over the world and translating all the sutras of the Buddha. So these days, whenever I wonder if there's a sutra that's in English, usually I just do a Google search, but oftentimes 84,000 Project comes up and this sutra is translated. So after class, Shani, do we have a WhatsApp group for all of CKSL?
Yeah, shall I forward it?
We do, yeah. So if you want, we'll send out a link to the sutra, and you can download it for free. That's the other great thing about 84,000 Project. They translate these sutras, they publish them online, and you can download for free. And they're very good translations. They have very high standards of translation, so it's very good. So we'll send out a link to this sutra online. It's only 61 pages long. And maybe in the future I'd like to maybe do a session where we go through that sutra, or at least the main points of the sutra. But we'll organize later. And then, okay, so it's very important, I think, especially in the Tibetan tradition, so oftentimes we get quite far away from the sutras. We read commentaries and commentaries and commentaries like this, but don't so often go back to the sutras. But it's very important to actually go back to the sutras themselves and read. So Shantideva says, yeah, I'll just read it again to emphasize the point, 104. I should read the sutras, because it is from them that the practices appear. That's where the practices, where Shakyamuni Buddha himself first explained all these bodhisattva practices in the sutras. To begin with, I should look at the sutra of Akashagarbha. Now, I don't know why he mentions that sutra in particular. Although I looked in a summary of the sutra and it said one thing described there is the practices for beginner bodhisattvas. It lays out practices for beginner bodhisattvas, so that's probably why. And then verse 105, in addition, I should definitely read the Companion of All Practices again and again. So it's interesting because that is a text written by Shantideva himself. So he's quite self-promoting, actually. It's interesting. It's like an author writing in their own book. You should definitely read this other book that I wrote again and again and again. It's interesting. In addition, I should definitely read the Companion of All Practices again and again, because what is to be constantly practiced is very well and extensively shown there. So again, I looked up this book also. Because when I was studying Buddhism newly, there was a translation of this. So this is another text by Shantideva. It's much longer than this one. And it's mostly made up of quotations from the different Sanskrit sutras, the Bodhisattva vehicle sutras. But it's very difficult text, because the sutras, many of the passages, are very difficult to interpret, very difficult to understand. And so when I was newly studying Mahayana Buddhism, the only translation was this very old translation from like the early 1900s with very archaic words and very not well translated. So I looked up online again this morning, and there's a new translation just published in 2016. Apparently very good. Actually, Geshe in the there's different authors they praise the book or recommend the book. Geshe Dorje Dangro is one of them online on Amazon.com. Geshe Dorje Dangro is a Geshe who's coming to teach here after a couple of weeks. So it'd be good to ask him. But actually, it costs $35 online. It's very expensive. So I was thinking maybe to write to the publisher to see if we could publish a copy in India at a more, a suitable rate for here in India. Because it's published in England, I think, or something. But this book's also available online. And we'll send out a link to this book also. Okay, and then 106. Also, I should sometimes look at the condensed compendium of all sutras, and I should make an effort to study the works by the same composed by the exalted Nagarjuna. So Nagarjuna has a short work called the Compendium of All Sutras, which I believe is not translated yet. I read it in Tibetan a couple of years ago, but it's not translated yet. So that's something, if someone else hasn't translated, then by the time I get around to it, then I'd like to translate. So maybe we could also go through that here eventually. So I'd also like to go through the Companion Practices, in the center. It would be really good to do. And a good way to follow Shantideva's advice, which is the Dalai Lama's advice, because the Dalai Lama is always encouraging people to study this book. It's probably, the Dalai Lama's taught this text more than any other text that he's taught. Okay, then verse 107. I should do whatever is not forbidden in those works, and when I see a practice there, I should impeccably put it into action, in order to guard the minds of worldly people. So basically Shantideva is saying, this is where everything I've written in this book, where did I get it from? From the Mahayana Sutras, and especially the Sutra of Akashabharva, and then the sutras that I've quoted in the Compendium of All Practices, and then these other commentaries by Nagarjuna and others, which are also compendiums of the different Bodhisattva practices as they were explained by Buddha in different sutras. So he's saying, look at those works, don't only rely on this work by me. Okay, then verse 108. The defining characteristic of guarding, so this is like a summary of the whole chapter. The defining characteristic of guarding alertness, in brief, is only this: to examine again and again the condition of my body and mind. So there's the essence. Again and again, examine so the defining characteristic of guarding alertness, the name of this chapter, right? This chapter is called the chapter on guarding alertness. The defining characteristic of guarding alertness, in brief, is only this: to examine again and again the condition of my body and mind. How am I using my body? How am I using my mind? How am I using my speech also? In this moment. So to be present, aware in the present moment, and look how we're using our body, speech, and mind. Are we using them just for selfish aims or to benefit sentient beings, directly or indirectly? And then last, 109. Therefore I shall put this way of life into actual practice, for what can be achieved by merely talking about it? Will the sick receive benefit merely by reading medical texts? Very good. So actually have to practice, not just mere words. It's not enough just to study, and then don't actually practice. The essential thing is to read, learn, and then actually put into practice, to use by again and again examining the condition of our body and mind, and seeing if it accords with what the Buddha taught about the life of the Bodhisattva and the behavior of the Bodhisattva, the actions of the Bodhisattva. Okay, so we finished the chapter. So let's take a break now, and then the rest of the time we have, after the break, we have for question and discussion and meditation. Okay? So let's, I always forget to offer the tea and food before, but today I'll remember. So let's offer the food and drink before we enjoy. On page 207 in the prayer book, there's the offering prayer on page 207. So think of the tea and drink, or about the food and drinks we're about to enjoy. And then imagine it being skies, not only that's on the table, but skies full of beautiful offerings, light, flowers, incense, water for washing and bathing, beautiful music, and so forth. So first we purify with this mantra, Om Ahom, Om Ahom, Om Ahom, Om Ahom. So imagine the food and drink becomes in one nature with the Buddha's enlightened body, speech, and mind. And then we offer to the Lama and the refuge with this offering prayer. The Guru is Buddha, the Guru is Dharma, the Guru is Sangha also. The Guru is the creator of all happiness. To all Gurus I make this offering. So imagine this offering radiates out throughout the universe and is received by all of our spiritual teachers, all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas everywhere, and all the holy objects, all the stupas, statues, scriptures, and texts. They receive the offering, and then from all of these holy objects, light rays radiate out throughout the universe, purifying sentient beings of all suffering and the causes of suffering, and blessing us and all sentient beings to have, to perfectly develop every positive quality, compassion and wisdom up to full enlightenment. So by whatever merit we've created so far this morning, and especially the merit we've created by this offering, may all sentient beings have food, nourishing food, and drink, clothing, shelter, companionship, education, safety, and spiritual nourishment as well. Okay, 1 after 2, so please enjoy.